When the chair arrives, we'll all stand up and clap her as she comes in, please.
Welcome to the meeting. Start with the karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā, kina kira, ki uta, kia mā, tauta, ki tai, e hi aki ana ti atakura, he tio, he huka, he hohu, ti hei muriura. Okay, so welcome to our meeting, and we have one apology from Councillor Hassan. So someone want to move? Apologies. Seconder? Yep. All in favour? So against? Carried. Any identification of extraordinary business? Nobody. Okay, we're going to the, so any conflicts of interest? I haven't had any identified to me. Nope. But no public forum. Confirmation of the minutes. Sorry, I just need to get into mine. There was one thing I wanted added, was it looks like our action table is missing, and the two actions that were on it was tree canopy policy and review of the climate change policy. So if we can have that added. Is there anyone else who wants to make comments about the minutes? Nope. You are? Sam? Let's move the minutes. Second is Sophie. All those in favour? Against? Carried. So, Chairperson's report. So to see, just added some things in there for information, and just want to talk about with Councillor McInnes and I went to Planning Institute conference along with a number of staff members. It was at Christchurch, and we, Sophie and I actually attended the elected members workshop the day before, which was quite interesting hearing about that. Particularly a couple of presentations. Just want to highlight is the one from Wellington City Council talking about enabling a transparency in decision making, enabling access. So if you guys, your own time, look up Wellington City Council website. It's not completely where they want it to be eventually, but you can get an idea of what they are doing. If you're looking up, so an example that I looked up was looking at the Cycleway project and clicking through, it says about all the timelines for the Cycleway. It says about the construction they're doing, where they are in the process, and how you can get more information, and even has pictures that they might have taken. They upload all that stuff. So it's freely available there, which is quite good. So the whole idea is they're trying to track all their decisions through to, if if it's a project, you'll be able to see the whole thing all the way through, which is it's obviously quite a process that they've got to get to where they are, but it's was interesting to see all that information available. The other one was about AI and help the environment, which is quite, so you can actually use many different uses for the technology, and it also saves someone physically having to go out and look at places regularly. So it also has a climate lowering carbon result as well. And with the main body of the conference covered quite a number of different topics, but a lot of themes were like development and implementation of disaster recovery and planning in that regard, and looking at managed retreat and those bigger picture planning things, and obviously looking at resilient cities. And interesting one is we talk about 15 or 20 minute sort of urban areas, although we're actually talking about 30-minute rural communities being able to have services available. And I can see the work that we've been doing. I'm just trying to think with the name of the group that council's been involved with, who are going out into the community. What's the who are delivering services out? Pardon? Yeah. Thank you, Sophie. So Heartland Group, and also looking at sustainability. And I found quite interesting that Brisbane City Council are carbon neutral council and are planning to deliver a 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games to be the first contractually required carbon positive games. And that's supposedly including how everyone getting there, which I found quite interesting. Sophie, is there anything you wanted to add about the conference?
No, just that it was really good that there were so many staff there as well. So the more information, the better with stuff like this changing. And there were some interesting talks around engaging with communities and mana whenua as well, which was quite good, given the level of stuff that needs to be communicated and shared and opinions gathered and stuff. So yeah, but yeah, the 30-minute rural communities one was really interesting. I enjoyed that. Thanks.
Is there anyone who wants to ask any questions or has any comments? Phil.
I just wanted to make a comment about your report. Thank you very much for a thorough report. I think it was it's really good to see committee chair preparing a report to the level that it's been actually prepared to,
Thank you.
and also starting to guide us down the path of your expertise that you are the chair for. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you.
Thank you. And I've just remembered that I meant to bring up, which has happened since I put my report out, is I don't know whether you guys are aware with the meeting at Christchurch City Council last week on Wednesday, Sir Councillor Templeton recommended that they look, so she put in there her climate portfolio report and had a research about the benefits of e-bikes, the success of the clean car discount and request, and they've agreed as a council to write to the Minister for Transport in support of a proposal for an e-bike subsidy, which I thought was quite an interesting thing. And they've also, from that meeting, requested advice from staff regarding that doing that as a remit subsidy, the subsidy remit to LGNZ. And so we'll look and see where that ends up. So if there's no further comments, Sam.
Just on that, if they are wanting to do that, remit's closed today. So if they have done it, they'll need support of a council. If you're seeking the support of this council, you'd want to put it to us today so that we could support it. Otherwise, it'll be for 12 months. I don't know where that was up to, but if that was your intention for us to support it,
Well, I was
I'm happy
bringing
that we do that. But
I was bringing it up, and you've just landed me with something that I didn't knew nothing about. So I don't.
it would basically mean if Christchurch put that forward, Selwyn would second. They're going to get 5 supporting councils. It would then go to the AGM, and the AGM then decides whether or not it gets passed, and we could then bring it back to this council and decide whether we support it. So there's no risk in us seconding it to go forward to the review committee to see whether or not it makes it to the AGM. We could have a substantive conversation on it. Should it be successful through the remit review committee at that point over the next, it'll be in 4 weeks before the AGM in Christchurch. I think we should support that sort of thing. So
You think we should support? Yeah. So what is the feeling around the table about that?
It's probably no surprise that I'd support it. But it's worth noting as well that I think the budget that came out from the central government recently now allows, well, they were making moves towards allowing you to claim mileage for use of a bike or an e-bike rather than just for cars now, which is really good. And I think this is a natural extension of it to actually get more e-bikes out for people who have that choice to, subsidise purchase of them and enable the use of it.
Madam Chair, if I could just say that the seconder only needs to be a mayor or a chair or a CEO of a council to make it happen. So if we don't need to move anything today, but if you're happy that I would take that move, and then should we want to support it at the AGM, that would then be fully debated at this group, but we don't need to move anything today because there's no papers for anyone to see or decide on this.
Cool. So we'll leave it there. Elizabeth, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if anyone can tell me, I know that there's been some accidents with people on the e-bikes because of the speed at which they can go. Does anyone know if there's any changes around that so that the bikes are not quite so powerful and there's a little bit more safety there?
This is obviously it's not really a debate. It's not something we can control as a council. That has been something that has been around as an issue in the past, but this is where what we can control as being a council is how we share space, and a lot of where bikes are predominantly going in our district is on shared paths. So whether we want to look at having as the rise, there has been a rise generally in e-bikes around. I'm not sure where we're at in Selwyn, but whether we want to be looking at having separated cycleways and such like around some of the towns. That is one way of minimising the issue that you were talking about. Is that what you were meaning? What are you?
I was referring to the speeds at which they can get up to, and I'm just wanting to know if those bikes are not quite so fast and so powerful anymore.
No, it's not. It's that if you're talking about that, then that's definitely not something for us. But we also need to be mindful about how fast cars go as well. Anyway, I'll move my report. Can I have a seconder?
Second.
Phil just picked you, Malcolm. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. So the group manager report, and so Bob Love is going to speak to that.
Thank you. Unfortunately, Tim can't make it today. He's feeling a bit unwell. I'll largely take his report as read, but I'll cover some highlights. So a submission on the review of the National Policy Statement on renewable energy generation is currently being prepared by staff. So that review is largely focused on how renewable energy generation can be better enabled through district plan. So we're looking at taking a draft to this council by email on the 26th of May, so this Friday, and then we'll do a retrospective council report to get that signed off. We have received a new COVID fast track application. So it's been received by the EPA and they're still deciding whether to accept it for processing. So this is Kilver Rock Solar Village, which is quite a large mixed use development out the Bankside area. I think all the details in the reports, but our initial comments back to the EPA is it's not overly fantastic. On to climate change. There's multiple work streams going on this side of things. So we're finalising the climate cycle trends report, which helps inform the LTP process. We're trying to better understand our greenhouse gas baseline. We're also ensuring climate change is embedded through our future cell work and the LTP work as well. So once those processes have happened, that will then inform our climate action plan and also the review of our climate change policy as well. There's also a presentation attached to the report as well, and we've got Keith in the room who can answer any questions at the end of this report. Some of the key stats, so there has been a spike in building consents received up to 310, so this is largely due to the cut-off date in the new insulation standards just passing. For the district plan review, we are finishing up all the hearings early June, and we'll look at a council sign-off on decisions on August 16th. On plan change 80, so that's the industrial rezoning next to iZone. So no appeals were received for that one, so that will become operative soon. And we do have a whole lot of other stats within Tim's report as well, and we have the respective head of Sue can answer any questions at the end. So questions, please.
Sam.
Yeah, question just around the district plan. August the 16th, it's going to come to this committee or to council for sign off, and the process for that, because not everyone's been here from the beginning of the journey, that's really a procedural sign off of what has happened over the last few years, and particularly over the last 12 months around the hearings and things. It's not going to be a time of opening up for debate all of the substantive matters that sit through the district plan. And I'm just sure that once it's on the agenda, we're going to hear from people in our community. What's the process around that for us as councillors to be aware of?
Yeah, so I believe that August meeting is a full council meeting. We are intending to bring a workshop paper on that exact thing on in the 12th of July.
Thank you.
Shane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rob, for the report. Just regarding the new renewable energy, government's national policy statement, I just wanted to understand staff's position on renewable energy and where we can take advantage of the government's direction in supporting our perhaps solar energy or direction into that renewable energy piece. We consistently apply for different areas, but consistently get much support. So just wanted to hear from staff, from yourself, Rob, around it.
So I'm not fully in the detail, but we do have Keith here who is part of preparing a submission. But I think one of the key submission points that we will be going back to them is that frustration between the national policy statement and highly productive land and renewable energy generation and enabling that, because we have just received not too long ago a consent for a solar panel farm solar farm, sorry, and it was declined because of HBL land, I believe. So that's one of the things that we're looking at clarification through that national policy statement, but I'm sure Keith can elaborate on a bit more of the detail that is cropping up in the review of that review.
Thank you.
Grant,
Shane has asked about solar. I guess I was just the same line. I was going to ask, do we need to do any more as a council? And you sounds like you've answered that point. It was interesting that Kilver proposal for the council. I just looked it up on the Google Maps. It's actually next to Mead Hall of all places. So maybe Mead Hall does need upgrading quite substantially.
Is that a motion you're proposing now, Grant?
Right behind you, Councillor Dean. I suppose it falls into Keith's part. I guess I'm a bit concerned about it says, what are we currently doing on page 72? And
Grant, sorry, Keith, can you come up to the front and answer? Is that all right? Answer some questions. Thank you. Sorry, Grant, continue.
I guess it worries me is that as a governance group, we've been quite explicit that we're prepared to pay a wee bit extra to see us transition our fleet to EV or hybrid. And I keep seeing new Ford Rangers arriving in our car park. And to me, either the governance message is not getting through or something's going wrong, because, I'm not seeing any EV chargers in our car park. I've seen a couple of RAV4 hybrids out there. It doesn't seem to align with the direction that the governance has been directing staff to move towards. I guess, is there a substantive reason why we're continuing to go down the path we are? It doesn't seem logical for us. I can't see that our building inspectors need Ford Rangers to drive around because largely the sites are sealed. It just doesn't make sense to me, unless it's for fringe benefit tax reasons. Maybe that's the reason, but yeah, you might better enlighten us.
Kia ora koutou, Keith Talantai, Taku Ingoa. I think maybe there are other people in the room that are closer to some of the issues, but my understanding is that most of the new vehicles that we're buying are hybrids. And we do, before my time, there was a date set for transitioning the fleet, and some of those discussions are sort of continuing with colleagues around how we do that and what that might look like, and EV charging facilities at the HQ here. So it's not happening, but could happen faster.
Maybe I'm the Lone Ranger here, but I thought direction from the governance team was pretty direct. Don't keep buying that sort of stuff. Get EVs. I don't know, unless someone read that wrong.
Nicole, I can address that.
Thank you.
Grant is correct. There is clear direction. A couple of complicating factors to it. First being, as we went through COVID and the long lead times of supply, a lot of vehicles have been ordered pre this, so we're still catching up on orders that have been on pre-order. Keith was correct. The intent is to head down a green path, and the most suitable green path that we need. Ideally, it's smaller vehicles, electric. The range of vehicles is now improving, so therefore the constraints are less. It may mean that the way that vehicles are used by staff is much more on a pull basis. So therefore, if there's a need for a four-wheel drive that is diesel-based or anything like that, then it's a limited number in the fleet which are used specifically for those occurrences. In regards to charging, we are actively looking at how that might work. There are some constraints around how the building has been set up around its distribution of electricity, but that's being worked on with a supplier. And similarly, the as you'll note in a report later today around charging stations at facilities, that has been progressing well.
So Keith, is there more that you wanted to highlight from your work while you're up there? Yeah.
I guess the slides are quite wide-ranging and would benefit from more of a discussion and a workshop, and that's sort of some of the things that we've got planned following some further discussion with ELT about framing what that looks like.
Yep.
So happy to receive email Q&A in relation to the detail. and just conscious that all the hyperlinks didn't come through in the agenda PDF. So if you did want to dive down the rabbit hole of some of the documents shown, I'll circulate the file with the hyperlinks active, so you can.
Any of these people that are waiting to speak, wanting to ask questions of Keith? Sophie.
Yep, you've actually answered most of my questions, and yes, I would love to go down the rabbit hole, please. Yeah, I was going to ask, at what point do we get to do more or learn more around here? Because not necessarily that, there's a lot of operational stuff in here, but as Grant said, there's direction that we would probably like to discuss and provide. But also I think that sort of discussion around this policy and strategies and targets that are mentioned, which we don't really have within our policy yet, the sooner we've got them, the better we can frame a lot of the other discussions that we're having. Because things are always moving, and unless we've actually got a target that we're trying to hit, it's really hard to just hone in on there. We've got a risk of staying off track for too long. Cheers. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Is Lydia, your question? You don't want to do?
No, it's not directly the case. So
thank you.
These are good. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions on this. What is the process with Kilver Rock effectively wanting to construct a new township? And I was just questioning where PC 74 was with the joint working statement when the hearing was adjourned, and with the I know that Andy and Denise aren't here, so it's a little bit hard for them, but with the 7 new SNAs assessed, was it private landowners coming forward, or was that a council initiated assessment? Those are my questions. Thanks.
So that's EPA fast track process. So it's at the very first stage where they've effectively received an application. They're now determining whether to even accept it for processing.
Yeah.
So they just go out for some general comments here and there. If they do accept it for processing, then they will come back to us and we will provide a more in-depth analysis of the proposal. On the PC 74 process, I believe it's going back to hearing during May. So if it hasn't already, it will be back there very soon.
Okay.
And on those 7 SNAs, I don't know the exact details, but generally to date, we've sort of tried to work with landowners. It's not us going to them saying we are going to make this an SNA. It's been tried to go there together and get their buy-in. The national policy statement on Indigenous biodiversity, which is due out any time, may mean a change in that.
Thank you.
Sophie, you've got
I thought Phil was going to ask a question. Sorry, this was a separate question to what I was asking Keith. Looking at the timeframe targets on page, or doesn't tell me what page it is now. Was thinking about limbs. It seems to be showing that we're doing really well processing limbs. Every so often, though, you hear somebody will say, "Oh, I've been waiting 6 weeks." So I get that that's probably the exception now. Is there anything in particular that we should be communicating about why that might happen, or is it very much a case-by-case basis?
Calvin's going to speak to that.
Yeah, good question. We are suffering a wee bit with some staff issues in the limbs department. We had a lot of staff depart all at once, which had put pressure on it. So we are running slightly behind the statutory requirements. We're communicating that with anyone who applies for a limb. They are advised that they will take longer than normal. So that's at the point in time they enter the limb system and the point in time that they receive acknowledgement that the limb has been submitted. So they get it twice. We've spoken with all the main legal firms that tend to ask for those. We're getting back on track and not far from being where we need to be. In terms of 6 weeks, that would be highly unusual. And we'd need to really take a look at if we've got a specific one that we can look at. But noting also that when you've got a lot of public holidays, it's working days that these are on. Yeah.
I will ask my dumb question. I'd like to ask-
Okay, give it to us.
I like to ask for done one every meeting. On page 41 of the document here, there's a statement saying that statutory compliance is back up to 89% for the month with an average of 12 working days for consents timeframe. And then on the graph, which is right next to it, it shows it being around about 50%.
I'd have to pass it over to my colleague Vanessa.
Okay.
Vanessa, can you go at the front? Because I've got a question to ask you as well. Sorry.
Actually,
No,
that's a two-part question, by the way.
oh.
That was part one.
Do you want to repeat what you said into the microphone? Because it
Sure. I think the graph has just been omitted in terms of getting its update. So the 89% is correct.
Oh, that's good. So I felt really silly when I was looking at going.
Yeah, nice. No. So we've been going up nicely. We do expect it'll dip down slightly just because of the volume of consents we received in the last month. But then we'll track back up again.
There's a lot of acronyms you've used in the documents, and I'm advised that in planning the acronyms are something that happens and something that you pride ourselves on. I guess I struggled reading the documents, and I've got access to these fine people in this room here that I can make a phone call to. The public don't, and all these documents are public. So if you have any input, and I mean all of you have any input about the using less acronyms, then maybe that would be a good thing to do, because the public there's no way public could, or a glossary or something in there. Yeah. Thank you. That was the second part. I'm finished now, Madam Chair.
you are very good. Question that I've got is on that same thing, and I see that applications in April has gone up because of new installation standards. So how much difference is the new installation standards to what is now?
So the new installation standards have been brought in sections. So last year, can't remember the exact date, there was an upgrade to the window requirements.
Yep.
And now the next part follows, which is increased insulation in the roof, walls and floor. In terms of cost, that's probably going to add about $20,000 to $25,000 per house when you're talking your average house.
Mm-hmm.
Hence why everyone's rushed in to try and comply with the old standard, not adopt the new one.
But the interesting thing is over the life of the house, though, the actual cost.
Yeah. Sadly, we still have an industry that strives to meet the minimum requirement.
No, but it's interesting to hear. So thank you for that, Vanessa. Are there any other questions for Vanessa? No. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So have a mover for that. Malcolm and second Phil. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. So the alcohol report. Thank you. So Sue's coming up now.
Your apologies from Malcolm, who's just a little bit under the weather, so you've got me today. We'll just touch briefly on it. So in May, you'll see through the report, there was a large volume of licenses that went through, one of our busiest ones. Summarising what Malcolm was doing, we had the Selwyn Sounds concert on the 4th of March. It was really well supported with over 6,000 attendees. There were absolutely no issues, and the report's going through with recommendations to renew the licence for 2024, which is quite positive. We've had a number of new taverns open. We had the tavern at Kirwee, Thirsty Acres, and that's becoming popular with the locals there. A number of other ones. We had the Glow Night recently in Hororata, and Malcolm asked me to point out we had 11,000 people attend, and that was possibly the biggest event with alcohol licenses that we've managed, and that went really well. We've done a little bit of monitoring of licensed premises. So we did Selwyn Sounds, Drafters, Springfield Hotel, and a number of others. And we've had quite a growth in licensed restaurants as well in March. So it's all there in the report, but happy to take any questions if anybody's got any.
Any questions? Lydia?
I see here that Alpine 182 degrees, which is effectively Springfield Hotel, have applied for a renewal of their license. Where is that at with the deliberation?
So we had the hearing last month and a half ago, and it was quite a process getting that over the line. We had delays because of COVID and a number of other issues. And I think it was the 6th or 7th postponement, and the hearing was finalised. Now that's with the DLC are writing up that decision at the moment. So I have no part in the outcome of that. So I'll be quite interested to see, but we expect that will be in the next week or two. It's quite a large document. So as soon as I do hear, I'll let everybody know.
So where does that sit with them applying for a renewal?
They're pending the outcome of a hearing. They are allowed to trade. At the moment, there were some building issues, so they have shut down completely while they're trying to do some renovations, I believe. And I think there was some emergency exit issues, so they were correcting a few things there. So again, they're not trading at the moment. They could if they fix those issues. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Bill?
What's your feel on how Rolliston's going? In terms of, I know
It's quite a broad question. Can you be a bit more specific, maybe?
in terms of alcohol harm, there's a lot more licensed premises here now. You guys are right at that sort of the coalface part of it for SDC. I've got a concern, as you know, as we get more alcohol with no taxis, no way of getting home, the ARP just starting.
Yeah.
What have you got an overarching comment that can?
I think it's we're fortunate in that we're in a growth community, and we're seeing all the demand for some licensed premises is quite apparent. I'm not seeing any problems myself, but I'm not a frequent drinker and I'm not out beyond 8 o'clock at night. But the feel that I'm getting from the police is the indications where they would like an alcohol ban in Lincoln or Rolleston as a preventative measure, certainly for Rolleston, but that'll be something for another meeting I need to collate a bit more information from them to determine where the harm is and why they believe that. So we're in the process of the LAP, and we'll be tackling the request from the police as well.
Okay, I'm going to ask that question every time.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah. I like it.
Sophie.
I was going to ask around the waivers. It's section 4 waivers requested and approved. So they're both for the same location, which is, I think that's the Field Days site, isn't it? Just as a curiosity thing, really, around conflicting advice as to whether a special license is required. They're mentioned elsewhere as having a license. So it's kind of like, what's the process there?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact issues with that one. I can remember Malcolm discussing this with me, and they'd got advice from somebody else outside of our DLC that they felt they were going to be within the set number of days for applying for the waiver. And when, actually, I do remember, it was they'd approached the police to ask if they needed the waiver, and they didn't get a reply back in the required time. So they followed up with our alcohol licensing inspector, who said, you do need to apply for a waiver. And I think they'd just gone a couple of days over. So the conflicting advice wasn't from us. It was just a delay in process. So it's okay.
No other questions? Can I have a mover for that report? Shane, seconder Bob. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. So, resolution to exclude the public. Someone move that. Sophie, seconder. Sam. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you for attending the meeting, and we'll just wait for the live stream to finish.